Imagine for a moment if the devices in our hands, the smartphones, tablets, and computers we rely on every day, suddenly stopped working. No notifications, no messages, no way to connect with the outside world. The silence would be deafening, and the disruption immediate. Our lives, so intertwined with technology, would grind to a halt. Now picture this on a global scale: trade routes severed overnight, shipping lanes deserted, and the flow of goods and resources brought to a standstill. The world's economy, so dependent on seamless connections, would face a crisis unlike any before. At the heart of this looming threat lies the prospect of a military conflict over Taiwan, one of the most significant and volatile geopolitical risks of our era. The world watches as tensions simmer, knowing that the consequences could ripple far beyond the region. Tensions across the Taiwan Strait have reached new heights, with China ramping up military exercises and asserting its claim over Taiwan with increasing boldness and frequency. Meanwhile, Taiwan stands resolute, determined to preserve its identity and autonomy as a vibrant self-governing democracy, even as the pressure mounts. This region has become a dangerous flashpoint, a place where the ambitions of a rising superpower collide with the democratic aspirations of a proud people. All of this unfolds under the vigilant gaze of the United States, whose presence adds another layer of complexity and risk. If conflict erupts here, it will not resemble the wars of the past. Instead, it would be a hybrid war, fought not only with missiles and warships, but also with cyber attacks that could cripple infrastructure and economic blockades that would reverberate across the globe. The stakes are immense. This is not just a regional dispute. It is a crisis that could reshape the entire international order, affecting economies, alliances, and the balance of power worldwide. Understanding the roots and risks of this crisis is not just for policymakers or experts. It is a civic duty for all of us, because the future of global peace and stability could hinge on decisions made in Beijing, in Taipei, and in Washington. The choices made in these capitals will shape the fate of millions, and perhaps, the world itself. As storm clouds gather over the Pacific, the world holds its breath, anxiously watching and hoping that this crisis will pass without violence. But we must also be prepared for the possibility that the storm could break, changing the course of history in an instant. Taiwan may seem small at first glance, just a speck on the map off the coast of East Asia. But don't let its size fool you. This island plays an outsized role in the world's affairs, far beyond what its geography might suggest. Taiwan is a linchpin of the global economy, acting as a vital hub for international trade and shipping. Every day, thousands of cargo ships pass by its shores, carrying goods that end up in homes and businesses around the world. Its ports are among the busiest in Asia, connecting supply chains that stretch across continents. Strategically, Taiwan sits at the heart of the first island chain, a series of islands crucial for controlling access to the Pacific Ocean. This makes it a gateway between East Asia and the wider world, a position that's vital for both China's ambitions and the security of U.S. allies in the region. The waters around Taiwan are constantly patrolled by military ships, underscoring its importance in global security. Yet, Taiwan's true power lies in something almost invisible: microchips. The island is the world's leader in advanced semiconductor manufacturing, producing the tiny brains that power our modern lives, from smartphones and laptops to cars and even medical devices. At the center of this industry is TSMC, a Taiwanese company that manufactures over 90% of the world's most advanced chips. These chips are essential for everything from artificial intelligence to national defense systems, making TSMC a cornerstone of global technology. If a conflict were to disrupt this supply, the consequences would be catastrophic. The world could face a technological famine, with factories shutting down, electronics disappearing from shelves, and economies plunging into recession. The ripple effects would be felt everywhere, from Wall Street to your local electronics store. This reliance on Taiwan's chip industry is often called the Silicon Shield. It means that Taiwan's security isn't just a regional issue, it's a matter of global economic stability and security. Taiwan is also a critical node in global trade and innovation, driving advancements in technology and connecting markets across the world. Its research centers and tech companies are at the forefront of new discoveries, shaping the future of how we live and work. The island's stability is directly linked to the health of the world economy. Investors, businesses, and governments everywhere watch developments in Taiwan closely, knowing that any disruption could send shockwaves through global markets. A conflict here would mean higher prices for everyday goods, shortages of technology, and delays in everything from new cars to medical equipment. The impact would be immediate and far-reaching. The functioning of the global system, trade, communication, innovation, depends on Taiwan's continued peace and prosperity. Its role is woven into the fabric of our interconnected world. In the end, the fate of this island is tied to the fate of us all. What happens in Taiwan doesn't stay in Taiwan, it shapes the future for everyone, everywhere. For Beijing, reunifying Taiwan is a core part of national identity and political legitimacy. The Chinese Communist Party frames Taiwan as a breakaway province, a wound from the civil war that must be healed. President Xi Jinping sees this as a legacy-defining goal. China's strategy combines economic pressure, diplomatic isolation, and a rapidly modernizing military focused on invading Taiwan. An invasion would likely start with missile strikes and cyber attacks to paralyze Taiwan's defenses, followed by a massive amphibious assault. But the risks are enormous. Failure could destabilize the CCP, and even success would bring devastating sanctions and likely US intervention. China's ambitions are clear, but the path is fraught with peril. The dragon's gamble is as dangerous as it is ambitious. Taiwan's defense is the porcupine strategy. Make invasions so costly that China thinks twice. Instead of matching China's military, Taiwan invests in mobile missile launchers, fast attack boats, and sea mines to turn the strait into a deadly trap. The goal: survive the initial assault, inflict heavy losses, and hold out for international help. Taiwan's resilience also depends on its people's will to fight, inspired by examples like Ukraine. The military is preparing for guerrilla warfare if needed, and mandatory service has been extended. Every day Taiwan holds out increases pressure on China and opens the door for allies to intervene. It's a high-stakes gamble, betting on toughness and the hope that the cost will be too high for Beijing. The US plays a pivotal role, guided by strategic ambiguity, never saying outright if it would defend Taiwan. This policy deters both a Chinese invasion and a Taiwanese declaration of independence. But as China's power grows, ambiguity is under strain. If China attacks, the US president faces a fateful choice: intervene and risk war with another nuclear superpower, or stand aside and risk losing credibility with allies. Intervention could mean direct combat, with global economic and nuclear risks. Not intervening could shatter US alliances and cede Asia to Beijing. The US would likely escalate gradually, arming Taiwan, imposing sanctions, moving forces before direct combat. But the day may be coming when ambiguity is no longer enough. The Eagle's dilemma: two terrible options, no easy answers. A war over Taiwan would not remain a local conflict. Instead, it would pull in other Indo-Pacific nations, creating a ring of fire that could engulf the entire region. The strategic importance of Taiwan means that any military action would have ripple effects far beyond its shores, drawing in neighboring countries and global powers alike. Japan, with its proximity to Taiwan and the presence of major US military bases on its soil, would be immediately involved, possibly even targeted by China in the opening stages of the conflict. Japan's self-defense forces would likely be mobilized to protect its territory and support US operations, while Japanese leaders would face immense pressure to respond decisively to any threat. Australia, as a close US ally and a key player in the region, would almost certainly join in imposing sanctions on China and could contribute naval or air assets to support Taiwan or US operations. Joint military exercises would quickly shift to real-world coordination, signaling a unified response from Western allies and demonstrating their commitment to regional security. South Korea and the Philippines would face tough choices, balancing their alliance commitments to the United States with fears of Chinese retaliation, or, in South Korea's case, the risk of North Korean aggression. Both countries would be under intense diplomatic and military pressure, forced to weigh the risks of involvement against the dangers of inaction. The Philippines might allow US base access, but would do so cautiously, aware that such a move could make it a target for Chinese military or economic retaliation. Philippine leaders would likely seek assurances of U.S. support and protection before making any commitments. Russia would likely support China politically, providing diplomatic cover and perhaps limited military cooperation, while NATO and the European Union would impose harsh sanctions on China but avoid direct military involvement. The conflict would deepen global divisions, with Western and Eastern blocs hardening their positions. North Korea could exploit the chaos with provocations, launching missile tests or escalating tensions along the Korean Peninsula, further destabilizing the region and complicating the response of U.S. allies. The conflict would quickly become a global chessboard, with every nation forced to calculate its interests, alliances, and vulnerabilities. Diplomatic channels would be flooded with urgent negotiations as countries scrambled to protect their citizens and economies. Economic and security alliances would be tested as never before. The shockwaves would hit global markets, causing volatility and uncertainty, while organizations like ASEAN, the Quad, and the G7 would be thrust into the spotlight, trying to coordinate a response. The Indo-Pacific would become the world's most dangerous flashpoint, with military standoffs and diplomatic crises unfolding simultaneously. The risk of escalation would be ever-present, making the region a focal point for global attention. The stakes would be global, not just regional. The outcome of a Taiwan conflict would shape the future of international order, security, and the balance of power for decades to come. A Taiwan conflict would devastate the global economy and technology sector. The Taiwan Strait and South China Sea are vital shipping lanes. War would shut them down, causing supply chain chaos far worse than COVID-19. The halt in semiconductor production would trigger a global chip famine, crippling industries from cars to cloud computing. Financial markets would crash and a deep global recession would follow. China would face crippling sanctions, but the world would suffer too, as economic decoupling from China would be chaotic and painful. Nations would scramble to build new chip factories, but this takes years. Innovation would stall, and globalization would be fundamentally re-evaluated. Countries would prioritize security over efficiency, fragmenting the world economy. The shock waves would be a tsunami, leaving no shore untouched. A war over Taiwan could quickly escalate from a regional fight to a global catastrophe. If the US intervenes, it becomes a direct war between nuclear-armed superpowers. Allies like Japan could be drawn in if their bases are attacked, widening the conflict across Asia. China might target other US allies, pulling more countries into the fight. The most dangerous step is the nuclear threshold. If either side faces catastrophic defeat, the temptation to use tactical nuclear weapons rises. Even a single nuclear strike could trigger a full-scale exchange, ending civilization as we know it. This escalation ladder makes the Taiwan issue uniquely perilous. Once conflict begins, it's incredibly hard to control. The only true victory is preventing the first shot. War over Taiwan is not inevitable. Diplomacy can still avert disaster. The key is restoring deterrence, making the costs of invasion clear and unbearable for Beijing. This means strengthening Taiwan's defenses and showing US resolve, while also reassuring China that the US does not support formal Taiwanese independence. Open communication channels are essential to prevent miscalculation and accidental escalation. Restoring military-to-military dialogue is critical for managing this dangerous rivalry. The fate of Taiwan and Pacific peace depends on a shared commitment to the imperfect status quo. Wisdom and restraint are needed on all sides. In a great power conflict, the only real victory is choosing peace.